Furman students, philosophy majors. I'm Aaron Simmons, professor here in the philosophy department. And tonight I am talking with Lane Erwin, whose middle name is Wiley, if I'm not mistaken. And I think is one of the coolest middle names ever. So Lane was a philosophy and history double major. And you graduated when?
2015.
2015. So he's been out now 8 years as of the recording of this interview. It is right now April 13th, 2023. And so we're stoked to talk to Lane tonight, hear about his time after Furman, how philosophy in particular has kind of helped him become the person he is today. And the coolest freaking thing about Lane is he is now a stunt performer, works in Hollywood movies and big budget performances, does amazing stuff. Maybe he'll tell us some stories about it tonight. But I remember, in fact, Lane, one of the first times you and I ever talked, you were like, man, I want to major in philosophy. I want to be a stunt man. And I think I probably said something like, all right. Like, what do you say back to that? Oh, well, you've got the right major for stuntman. Like, the heck, man. And so he's doing it, living the dream, and super honored to be able to chat with him. One of my favorite students of all time, a legend in the minds of everybody who had the honor of being at Furman with him. So we're going to chat tonight for all of the students watching. We, of course, do a series of these every year, create a record of them. So that way you can go back and see different careers that philosophy majors have gone into, how they've moved into adulthood and navigated the next stages of their life. So honored to be talking to you, Lane. Thanks so much for hanging out, man.
Oh, yeah, man. I'm stoked to be here, dude. The Furman experience is something that is very unique. And yeah, I wouldn't have traded it for anything, man. So. Yeah, I'm glad to be able to talk to people who still are going through it.
That's awesome. Well, I tell you what, tell us a little bit about, why you got into philosophy. Like, how did that emerge as a major? Because a lot of times it's not hard to explain to people how philosophy can translate to awesome careers. What's often hard is to even get them interested in why this is a plausible major in the first place. How did that work out for you? How'd you become a philosophy history double?
Totally. So on the real, if we're going to get serious on that, so philosophy was a second semester class for me. I was excited about it. I had grown up in the church, and so I had always had a belief in higher power, belief in morality, belief in purpose, ethics, those kinds of things. My senior year, post-senior year, I had a lot of experiences that kind of made me not as in tune with my faith and stuff like that. And when I got into philosophy, I really read these things. There were a couple times where I was so frustrated. I didn't understand where are the answers. Am I the only one asking these questions? I get into philosophy class and I realized, oh man, a bunch of people have asked a bunch of these questions already, and a lot of them have come up with some cool answers. And so for me, it was really one of those moments where I was like, okay, I like this. This is cool. And then I was in the midst of pledging when I first got in freshman year. But what ended up happening, I remember, and I imagine you remember the story, was I had gotten into class, and at the time, because I was pledging, I wasn't doing all of the homework I was supposed to do. So when I finally had read what I was supposed to read for Simmons intro class, and I showed up and I thought I knew what was going on and I thought I was smart, and then I had everything turned completely upside down, and what I thought the text was saying was exact opposite of what was actually trying to be said. And so then I walked into Simmons, your office afterward, and I was like, dude, I don't get this. What the hell? I thought I knew it and I don't get it. What's going on here? And then you told me, you were like, well, you should be a philosophy major. And it was at that moment that I realized I was good at history. And because I wanted to be a stuntman, the main goal for me was graduate. So I was trying to drift towards things that I knew that I would enjoy and that I would do. And I was just good at history, and I loved philosophy. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to do this. This is what I want to do. And, I don't know if this is a big deal or whatnot, but back in the day, we were having a little bit of a crisis in the philosophy department. We needed more people there. So there was a little bit of a deal that was run and struck. And so it made it a lot more, I guess, like way more stoked to be like, yeah, dude, I want to be a philosophy major. And, I think there's a little bit of a satisfaction you get from somebody being like, you're a philosophy major? And it's like, yeah. And then what I love too is that one of my favorite movies of all time is Roadhouse, and Dalton, who is played by Patrick Swayze, which I don't know if any of these people who are watching this has probably seen that movie. However, you should go see it. It's a fantastic classic. He's an NYU philosophy major, and he's a bouncer at a club. So, just saying.
So what's so cool about that bizarre story of how you became a philosophy major is you if I can unpack this and tell me if this sounds right.
Come
on.
So
what you're saying, I think, is your experiences and background wrestling with questions that were bigger than yourself had traditionally been cashed out in religious contexts.
Yes.
But then when you got to Furman, philosophy sort of gave you a space where those questions could be asked in different ways with different registers, with different possible answers available. Yeah?
Absolutely.
And that I actually think is fairly common for a lot of people, certainly not all people. Furman has a very diverse population, people with different backgrounds. But I can honestly say for me, like, this, but I was raised fairly conservative Christian. When I went to a Christian college, I ended up majoring in history because we didn't have philosophy, but I was a history major because it gave me the closest thing to a space where big ideas were able to be in play. Right. Totally. And so I wasn't really able to hit philosophy until graduate school. And then I was hooked. So in some ways, I think you and I kind of have a similar sort of path to where you came. And Roadhouse, like, that's just baller, man. That's a deep cut
Come
for
on,
anybody.
Man.
For anybody who's like under 50, that's a classic, man. I'm with you on that one.
Okay, so like on the real, what's funny is behind that movie. So look, full disclosure to everybody out there, Furman, I'm in the film industry. One of the reasons why I love being in the film industry is because I love film. So I'm going to bring up some stuff in this conversation, I guess. But the cool thing about that movie was it was meant to be a modern Western. So all the names, Wesley, Dalton, all those names, they all come from old Western names from the 50s and 60s and stuff like that. So really cool. I always thought that was really cool. And, just the fact that he was like, Sam Elliott shows up, mijo, and he's a philosophy guy and he's talking philosophy. And yeah, man, I mean, it's just, I think that movie is kind of awesome because it literally made being a philosophy major cool.
So that's an important point, right? So of course, there's a lot of different ways cool can play out. And I think philosophy, one of the things I love about the Furman philosophy department, and this has been true for the 12, 13 years, whatever it is I've been here now, within the philosophy department, like, I couldn't tell you who the cool kids are outside it. Does that make sense? Like, if you're part of like this weird little motley crew of philosophers, like, everybody's cool, everybody's down, everybody's accepted, everybody's in. And I think that's pretty slick because as soon as you go outside of that space, then of course, the tierings happen and are you in the frat or are you sorority or are you athlete or whatever. Philosophy, it's about ideas that matter and then good arguments for the views you hold, right? And like, it does, nothing else matters. And one of the things that's cool about mentioning Patrick Swayze is any way to think about philosophy as not being just a bunch of old white dudes wearing tweed, smoking pipes, like that might be true for some, and rock your pipe and tweed if you want. But it's also the case that philosophy is intentionally a space that is available for lots of different paths, lots of different futures, even for people wanting to go into film, be stunt performer. So you major in philosophy, you finish with not only 1 degree, but 2, philosophy and history. How then did that from graduation, get us from graduation to now living in Atlanta with this amazing resume of all these films, being in recent Marvel movies? Like, how did you get from Furman's graduation stage to where you are now?
Okay, so first off, first thing I want to go back to what we were just talking about, and as far as your point on the diversity in the philosophy department, because I totally agree. I talked to more people that I was in the philosophy department post college than I do with my fraternity brothers. I talked to more people in my philosophy department than I talked to in my my rugby team. You know, so like, yeah, no, I think that's totally true, and it's
That's so
absolutely
cool.
right. But yeah, shout out to Peter Dimery, McKenna Redwine, Maya Wellborn, all those cool people, you know. And also back to your point too, like I think that was one of the only times I had mostly positive interactions with other guys in fraternities. Cause I mean, most of the time we were competing over dumb things. And that was the one time that we could actually sit down and talk and be like, hey man, you're cool. You want to hang out sometimes and not tell my fraternity about it? Yeah, dude, let's do that. You know? Anyway, okay, how I got to where I'm at. So, believe it or not, it was my junior year when I had talked to one of my mentors and I was like, this is what I want to do. He mentioned a guy who was my mentor, the first guy who got me in the business. And I went and hung out with him and wakeboarded behind his boat and ate it so many times that he was like, okay, this guy can take a hit. He's good. So I basically went to school, and while I was in college, senior year, I worked on a pilot. I literally drove from Greenville, South Carolina to to um to Atlanta and worked for the day and got my Taft Hartley. So that was when I finally was in SAG. So I got my SAG card while I was in college. And at that point, I remember driving back and linking up with some of my friends at the barn and having a couple beers and just celebrating and having a good time. And I was 22 at that point. So yes, I was legal drinking age at the barn. Anyway, from there, I got to Atlanta. I shadowed a show. And then it kind of became this, all right, what is this world that I'm living in? I definitely had I bumped into a lot of real world situations about conversations that we had in philosophy. Like I was living in a spot that was new to me and was different and was kind of familiar to where I grew up in North Carolina, but not the same. And I ran into a lot of situations that like really challenged what I was. I'm 30 now, and in college, I definitely realized I sit and realize how much I let things go now. I did not used to do that in college. I did not used to just be like, okay, man, that's you. This is me. We're cool. I used to have to figure out a way to get you to think that what I was thinking was right, and which is fun to do in a philosophy class because you're not totally yelling at each other all the time. So that was good. But yeah, so I just eventually went a couple years with getting a couple jobs here or there. And then 2018, 2019 is when I kind of picked up. I did a lot of, I did like I did a movie, I did a DC TV series, Swamp Thing. I was doing NCIS New Orleans regularly. And then at the end of that in 2019, I ended up working on what I like to think is my biggest show, LA's Finest, just because of my experiences with working with Gabrielle Union and Jessica Alba and doing a lot of big stunts on that. I did an underwater fight on that show. And then I doubled a guy and I went out of a second story window through a 15 feet pane of glass to the ground. So that was pretty awesome. I chopped my head open, walked away with just a couple of they actually glued it. because they couldn't shave my head in case I had to go out the window again. So they had to glue my head back together. And then I was like, all right, I'm ready to go. It's like, nah, man, we got it in one. And I was like, cool. Go home, collect that paycheck, man. You know?
I'm sure Patrick Swayze would have been proud, right?
Gosh, dude, do you know how bad I wanted to be? Like, I remember going to the Halloween party senior year as Swayze from Roadhouse because I was like, yeah, this guy rocks, man.
Man, that's so cool. How have you found what you do? I mean, like, one of the things that's always a frequent conversation with graduating seniors, right, is they have some vision for their future, you know, and we philosophers narrate this, of course, unnecessarily complicatedly. It's like, oh, well, there's actually a lot of possible future use, and you know, what arguments are there for this one versus that one, and you know, Seneca says we should never live with regrets, and so how do we, you know, so we have these conversations in advising meetings. But how has it played out? Like, if you were now talking to 22-year-old Lane walking across the stage and you're like, dude, yeah, like, you're going in the right direction. This is worth it. This is a career that is as fun, as rewarding. Like, is it lived up to what you had hoped?
Shoot, more, you know, like, I tell, if I walked past 22-year-old Lane Doe, I'd look at him, dude, and I'd be like, hey, man, go after it, relax, and think less. You know, like, that's really the three things that I try to think about on a daily basis. And as far as that goes, for philosophy wise, you know, I've delved into the thing that I've really kind of focused on is sports mindset philosophy. You know, I've done a lot of flow state study and stuff like that. That's my big thing. Stephen Coulter is a big guy that I really like to read these days. And then also Camus, man. Like, Myth of Sisyphus is a daily read for me. It's a daily read. It's like, you know what? I'm gonna pick this boulder up and read it, and then, you know, figure out something else. But I think
find your rock.
Yeah, man. Well, honestly, the thing that really hits me on that is it's not about, like, you're gonna push the boulder every day, and there's no. I mean, yeah, it could be like, for me, it's a different task every day. It's not the same boulder, right? It's a different boulder every day, and I think what I glean from that, from him so much, is that it's like, look, dude, that boulder's going to get to the top of the hill and it's going to roll down the bottom of the hill. And at the end of the day, you got to walk back down to the bottom, right? And so he's just like, you can either walk down there and be like, man, I had a crap day. I can't believe this happened, and I got to do this all over again tomorrow. Or you can choose joy, and you can see the light and be like, man, that was amazing. Like, this is hard, I know, but I got a lot out of it. And, you know, I can sit here and worry about tomorrow, or I can be stoked for it. And so that's something that I take into account, because every day for me is different. Every single day is different. And I have to be able to pick up, like, oh, hey, Lane, we need you. Are you available tomorrow? Yeah, no problem. Hey, do you have I got you a 2-week job, man. It's gonna come up, and you're gonna love it, dude. And it's good. Okay, great. Week later, hey, man, just a heads up, it's only a daily, and you know, like, I'm sorry about that, dude. They changed it in the script, and I was like, okay, you know, whatever. Got to keep going. Parents call you up. Hey, why are you 30 years old and you don't have your shit together? Oh, yeah, I'm working on it.
Yeah. I mean, so I love the idea of, like, helping students now that are in college, looking at their futures, to help them say, you know, think less doesn't mean think less well. No. It just means, you know, don't be so obsessively worried about every single step. You know, you know, my shtick on this is pursue faithfulness, not success. Like, find a way to be faithful to what matters, run in the direction that you think's worthy of your finitude, worthy of your life. And then a whole bunch of stuff's gonna not work out the way you'd hoped, and a whole lot of other stuff is gonna work out better than you ever dreamed, right? And both of those you got to kind of be okay with. And man, no matter what we do in life, whatever career we have, it's going to eventually be a really heavy boulder some days, right? Like, I'm sure there are some days where you're on it and you're like, man, this is so cool. I can't believe I get to do this. And there's other days where you're like, I've been sitting for 9 hours waiting to jump out of that window. And now I just got told, sorry, come back tomorrow. Like, and my hunch too, and you've talked about this with me some, like, there's a lot of feast or famine in your career, right? I mean, you might work a lot and then you go a long time without,
Yep.
you get amazing stuff and then it's a little bit of time. How have you navigated, this is maybe a weird question, but you're one of the people I think best suited to answer it for kids wrestling with this. Mm-hmm. How do you navigate, you mentioned your parents saying, why don't you get your stuff together, but like, how do you navigate the fact that what you do with your life, how you spend your time, the priorities that you have, the way you work through the things that you are quote unquote supposed to be doing at 30? I mean, your life doesn't look quite like that, right? And so how have you navigated expectations from others, given that you've chosen to push a boulder that a lot of people think is not worth pushing? How do you reconcile that for yourself? How do you find peace and joy in the midst of what, your parents or culture or business leaders or whoever might say, no, you need a mortgage and you need this and you need, what's that look like for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I'm very fortunate because I know and believe in what I've wanted to do my whole life. A lot of people don't have that inclination. You, not to, I'm recently single, so I'm on the dating market right now, and just people my age are like, hey, and so 30 to 25 are like, yeah, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I want to do. I need to take a break and figure it out. I don't know if I want to take this corporate job that I like, or if I want to actually go I got a friend, she gave up a corporate accounting job just to make chocolate because she likes chocolate, and I think that at the end of the day, I just am so lucky. I'm so lucky to just know what I've wanted to do. And I think that anyone, when you get a feeling for what you love to do, and you get a doubt voice in your head that says, well, this isn't, like, I can't make a career out of this because I can't make money and I don't have this and there's not a pathway and there's no grad school for it. No, man. No. If you love something, you're passionate about it, you will find people that are stoked on that and stoked that you're stoked and that want to help you. I think that that's something else that I forget a lot. And especially being a firm and community, it is true, is that people want to help you. Like, people want to help you succeed if you're a good person and you do right by other people. And so yeah, I think that, like, yes, I've been lucky and I knew what I want to do. And I think a lot of the times when they cut my power off, or I had my eviction notice on my freaking door, it wasn't, it was part of it. It was like, okay, great. I know the universe will provide for me. And then literally a week later, I got a job on NCIS New Orleans, paid all my bills off. And the next thing I know, that Johnny and Heather, who are two of my favorite people on the planet, loved me so much. They got me 4 more jobs that vacation, like that whole year, half a year. And that's like 4 jobs and weeklies and doubles and stuff like that. You're looking at a decent amount of money. And so, Johnny and Heather were the first people to give me a shot. And I think, like, that's something else. And I'm not trying to, like, toot my own horn or anything like that, but that's something that I always say, look, people have given me a shot. I do right by them and they keep bringing me back. And I think that that's a testament to just what I do. And that's something else. Like, I'm fortunate to where it's like, okay, you do your work and then, oh man, everybody on set claps you off and thinks you're a badass and all that. Mm-hmm. You don't see that product for months or years at a time, And so I remember the first time I had real, like, oh my gosh, is this what I'm supposed to be doing, was 2016. And I was making coffee, waiting on stunt jobs, hoping my boss calls, hoping the show goes well. And the show came on. And I remember seeing myself on screen and being like, yo, that's me on NBC primetime television. Like, yes, I am doing what I need to do. I am in the right spot. And so, like, I think that's those small victories in life are so important, because like you can get beat down real easily, And I always reference that Stallone quote from Rocky Balboa, and he says he's talking to his kid Milo Ventimiglia, and he's like, "Yo, it's not about how hard you can hit; it's about how hard you can get hit and still get up and keep going." Yeah. So
no, I love that. I mean, I think this is important for folks to hear, right? Because you are clearly successful. You're clearly doing amazing things. It's funny for me to think, because I knew you at 18 and 19, right? Like, it's funny to think about what 19-year-old Lane would be saying if 30-year-old Lane came and spoke. Like, you'd be like ripping your shirt off in the back, asking for you to sign your chest. I mean, you would be so stoked that this person is possible, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because you'd literally do that, right? So the fact that you've been super successful and have had all these things come through and are watching yourself on TV in prime time, it's also the case that this has come with challenges, and there's been rough patches, and some heartache and soul searching along the way. And one of the things that frustrates me, to be honest, about some of the way that I'm not thinking specifically Furman, but some of the way that universities narrate sort of the let's bring alumni back and let them be examples to our current students, is it ends up all kind of getting narrated as, here's this person who is so infinitely successful on standard models of success, right? Lots of money, lots of power, lots of influence, lots of status. And then they'll talk about failures, but it ends up all sounding kind of like a really crappy motivational speech half the time, right? It's like, don't worry, you can get right back up. And it's like, the point is, Stallone, when he says, how hard can you get hit and get back up? That doesn't mean then you get back up and don't have blood coming out of your eye, right? I mean, part of the getting knocked over is actually realizing sometimes you may get back up, but you've got a concussion. I mean, the weight of what it looks like to be able to find your footing in the course of human existence is hard, man. And I think you balance that really well. And I think that's inspiring to a lot of people.
Thank you, Simmons. Well, funny story, dude. I mean, I've been in a situation where I've almost gotten knocked out and have a concussion and have to get back up and do that stunt again. So
you've got to tell this story though, because this is crazy. Hanging in the air, please tell this story.
Okay. So, I got a call from my boss in 2017, and he was like, "Bro, guess what? I got a Marvel show, dude. You know anything about Inhumans?" And, full disclosure, I am a full-on 0-day, Tuesday, Wednesday at the comic book shop comic book nerd. So when I was told about this, I was like, heck yeah, dude, let's go. And I got there, and it was this big, huge sequence where basically Gorgon, my buddy Aaron Alexander, who is his double, runs into this fight, and we have like 3 separate fight scenes, multiple Inhumans doing their low key, it's an X-Men kind of type thing, like mutant powers, right? And they're doing that, and they're blowing people up. And then we're up in these trees. I'm 50 feet up in this tree, and I'm shooting this Mossberg Rogue pistol grip shotgun, and I'm shooting it at the bad guys, and all this stuff. And then we've been up there all day, and I have to get hit by this tree, and I get knocked out, and I fall out of the tree, and then I go head first straight down all the way to the deck, and that's a 45-foot, 46-foot fall. They dropped me 2 feet before I hit the ground. So we've been doing this all day. We've been training. We've been pre-visiting. This is the last day, trying to squeeze it all in, quick, quick, quick. We spent half the day doing dialogue because that's so important, and there's nothing dangerous that's going to happen with the dialogue, right? And so, anyway, we're blowing up pyro, and then finally, daylight's coming down. So that means we got to get this last shot. Come on, Lane, let's go, let's go. Get up in the tree, dude. Okay, I'm up in the tree. I'm up in the tree. I've been up in the tree for the last like 15, 20 minutes because they were shooting other shots. And so now I'm up there. Like, are you ready to go? I was like, let's go. So I shot and I get dropped. What I didn't know was that my buddy who was on the rig, who was supposed to be on my line, had to go do a fitting last second. So they swapped another guy, a really awesome cat. He is a great dude, great stunt man. But he was on line. They dropped me a foot closer to deck than they should have. My shotgun that was slaying over my back came, if you can imagine, the ground here came over my back, bounced off the ground, and hit me in the face. So as I was falling, boom, like that. And so when that happened, I was like, whoa, that was a lot. And then I could feel like this warm wet on my face. I was like, okay, I definitely busted my face open. And then what was supposed to happen was I get stopped and they drop me. And then my buddy comes over and picks me up and takes me out. And so what happened was I heard one of the guys on the line over there go, oh man, he's Hawaiian. I think the howley hit his head. And so then they were like, everyone's thinking, oh man, he just whacked himself, right? And so they come over and they pick me up and they check me out. Like, are you okay? I was like, I'm good. I'm good. I am concussed. I just got pistol whipped by a shotgun by 50 feet. And then the director comes over and he's all disheveled. My boss is standing right there. My boss is this like big old like dude. And he's like, hey man, I'm really sorry, but we ran out of film on that. Can you go again? My boss looks at him and goes, dude, it's digital film, bro. And he's like, yeah, sorry. Can you go again? And my boss looks at me and I was like, Tris, I'm ready to go. He's like, get the apple boxes in here. So then we just had to cheat it. And then we ended up doing reshoots anyway. So it was almost like no point. But I remember all I wanted was a beer. And I was in Laikea. And so it was a dry county. So I'm walking hobbling in with this big old black eye on my face. I can't hear out of my ear. And then I'm looking at this lady. I was like, ma'am, I just like to buy a beer. She's like, oh no, we don't have beer here. It's dry county. It's like, there's a guy with no shirt, no shoes on buying groceries, and I can't buy a beer here. This is ridiculous. So anyway,
I am left speechless by the fact of your life, my friend. That is something. My goodness,
it's wild sometimes.
So some of the things that I think current students can take from this: A, don't jump out of trees. That's probably a good thing.
Just jump into pads, man. Just jump into pads.
Climbing sounds good. The jumping less so. But I do think that it's important. Yeah, I mean, the lesson though is really powerful. You know, can you navigate stuff that is really hard and do so without losing the sense of what matters and the sense of who you are, right? And more and more when I teach philosophy classes, especially in light of the pandemic now we've all lived through, like I continue to tell students philosophy at its most basic. I think I'm an existentialist, and so this resonates with me, but at the end of the day, philosophy is about you really living into the fact that you're okay, even if it's not, right? Like, you know, for you to hop up and say, I'm good, clearly not really true.
That's the job though, man.
But it's like, you know what? But I'm gonna keep going. Like, push the rock, keep moving. And I think there's something powerful about that. And so yeah, man, I think this is inspirational for a lot of cats. And I think people are gonna enjoy hearing about how you went from a religious high school kid who discovered big questions in other modes during college to getting breaks because people liked what you did, and then they offered you other opportunities to continue to be good. You live into that, you cultivate excellence, pursue your dreams, be okay with the fact that it may not look like what excellence looks like to someone else, but you're doing what you think actually makes your life, your existence worthwhile. And I think that's just super, super, super cool. All right. So as a way of kind of winding things down, I want to know what are your top 2 or 3 memories of philosophy classes at Furman, or philosophy events? It may not be in a class, but in the philosophy department with the philosophical community at Furman. Give me some of your favorite memories from that time.
Some of my favorite memories. I mean, I still think about when Dr. Shaner just put me in my spot in Indian philosophy. It was just like, I remember we were talking about this. I think we were reading either the Vedas or the Bhagavad Gita, and we were just talking about how like impermanence is like can spark joy, and change is good. And I was just sitting there. I was like, dude, like how can I got another story after this that I'll tell, but I was like, dude, how can you enjoy anything if you know it's going to change? Like if you're going to change, you got to be prepared. You got to know, you know, and just this army brat mentality that I still had, right? That I was like, well, you got to be prepared. You got to have a plan, you know, hope and ain't a plan, which I think is BS. I think hope is one of the best plans that you can have. Anyway, yeah. But he's like, no, dude, you don't get it. And I was like, what do you mean? What is there not to get? You don't get it. And I was like, what is there to get? And he's just like, that's the whole point. And then it was funny how Shaner could say a lot with very little. And that was kind of one of my moments that I realized everything ends, things change, and you have to really be present to enjoy the things in your life, because
that's cool.
You know, it's not something to worry about.
Right.
I mean, it's an expectation, yes, but simultaneously, it's not something that should distract you from the present moment.
Well, I mean, my goodness, though, like the pandemic, you know, the amount of students I had when that hit who, and I'm not saying this like lightly, I'm saying they were, so many of them, unable to make sense of how to then get out of bed the next day because their internship had gotten canceled that summer, or because they couldn't do a Fulbright, or they couldn't, you know,
or they couldn't even go to college.
You couldn't even go. I mean, even just going to class looked different. And I get it, because we are beings who do plan and do anticipate and do live toward. I mean, and this is good. But at the same time, like, you know, C.S. Lewis asks a question during the middle of World War II and, you know, the bombing of England. And he says, what good is philosophy? And he says, well, if philosophy was only about like problem solving and handling the situations and moving forward, then maybe not much, right? Because we got to stop bombs and stop dying in order to get back to philosophy. And he said, but we're not that kind of being. We are these weird creatures who write poetry when faced with defeat, sing songs while walking to the gallows, you know, and we philosophize when bombs are falling. Like, there's something amazing about kind of taking seriously, like you say, hope is the best plan. Like, there's something cool, man, about being a human and understanding what that means is plans are going to get messed up and things are going to go sideways. And even when that happens, like, I'm still good. I'm okay. And that's hard for people to understand, because we teach them so often that you're only okay if the plan all works out. Right?
Right.
Only if the 401k is just stacked are you okay. And you're like, well, I don't know. Like, is my rent paid through the end of the month? I'm okay. I'm good.
Okay.
You know, like, rethinking where we are is maybe something that more and more and more we've got to start freeing each other up to do, you know?
Yeah. And I think like I think I've always really bummed out for those classes, because I really do feel like they lost a lot of an experience. Like, I can't imagine the trouble I would have gotten into if I wasn't in college. You know,
you needed office hours. Let's not kid ourselves.
I needed hours for sure. I had a counselor, I had the social worker, I had my advisors. I had caring about myself, and that was the main problem. So
yeah, no, that's right.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think that was important. My other one, which plays into what we were just talking about a lot, is like, I got one more for you that's really good. You'll love it.
Give it.
It's you.
Bring it.
Anyway.
Oh no. Oh
so
no.
we're in your class and we're doing Levinas. Oh
Mhm.
yeah, we're doing Levinas. And I remember I'm sitting there and I couldn't wrap my head around it because this is something that you're talking about, right? In school, you have to succeed. You have to make good grades. You have to do the curriculars. You got, and not just do the curriculars, you got to win in the curriculars.
Right.
You got to, get all the stuff, Anyway, we're sitting there and you're like, all right, yep, Levinas is basically saying this dude survived the Holocaust. He says, we all fail every day. You're a failure. You're a failure. It's cool. We're all failures. We're all failing here. We're all failing. And for some reason, I couldn't wrap my head around that. I was like, yeah, but like, you're like, you got to help somebody no matter what happens to you. And it's like, yeah, but what if you're sitting there and you gave a guy your last dollar? You still fail. Well, then what if you're in the hallway with sitting next to a homeless guy because you're homeless and you can't eat? Well, you still fail. And I think that, like, as a person that spends their life and gets paid to fall down a lot and die, I've learned a lot from my failures. And I think
so
that's
cool.
something that I think a lot of people would really understand that, like, look, like, we're all gonna fail. Like, if you're not, there's this thing that we have in rock climbing, and we call it try hard, right? You're like, hey man, get up there, have fun, try hard. It means that you're like pushing the efforts. For any anime fans on the Furman philosophy, that's some plus ultra, okay? So My Hero Academia plus ultra, all right? Go beyond. Anyway, so what happens is that you're just trying hard and you fall and you fail, but that's like how you learn the next move. When you're mountain biking, you're on a trail, you're on-siding a trail. Oh, well, I know the next time that I should do this. And then it gets smoother and more efficient. And that's when, and I think with this Instagram culture, with the social media culture, we all see the success, the highlights, but no one sees the spills and the falls and the missteps on the way there. So
no, I think that's so smart. And just for anybody who might be interested in Levinas, the failure is the idea that there's nothing you could ever do that would make you morally adequate, right? There's always more responsibility that you haven't achieved, you haven't lived into. And so, like, that's
the Joey Phoebe Friends episode.
Yes, no matter what you do, it's still ego. It's still coming back and being a moral failure. That's exactly right. And for anybody who wants to take my classes on these things, I have responses to this, and I think that there are better ways to live. My version of try hard is coming from a philosopher named Todd May, which is, though Levinas is right in principle, in practice, my encouragement is do the best you can today, and then tomorrow do just a little better.
1%, baby.
A little better. And if you do better than yesterday, a little better, then you're moving the right direction. Wow. Well, dude, I miss you. You know that I am so proud. But what's so slick, and I know you know this, I'd be proud if you were right now working in a corporate office wearing a 3-piece suit, because it doesn't matter what you do. It matters that you do what you do on purpose. And so I know that you're doing it on purpose and you're freaking living the dream. And it was a dream you had that you made into reality. And I hope for all of the students watching this, whatever they can't even imagine being the case, the 8-year-older themselves coming back, like it's possible, right? The possibilities are endless. And so go push that rock as hard as you can. You're going to get knocked down, get back up. We can make stuff happen. And Lane, you're an example of how to do this, man. It's an honor to know you, and you make me better.
I'm very fortunate. If I'd have one thing to say, just like, whatever you feel like you're supposed to do, don't let can't enter your sentence. Don't let can't enter your diction, because the second you do, that's the second you can't.
Yeah.
So
I think that saying is right. And of course, I've got like 7 jokes now about, but should Kant enter your dictionary? And this is why everyone's cool in philosophy and all of us are dorks.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not?
We're all hanging.
Dude, we got lucky. The last 10 years, it's cool to be weird and a geek and a dork now.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Bring it. Bring it. Let's so I think we should title this conversation, "You Too Can Be Patrick Swayze." And that's the goal, right? We can all pull it off.
Yeah. So. And you know what? You can be Patrick Swayze from Roadhouse, or you can be Patrick Swayze from Point Break, because that's the best one. Love me some Bodie.
and you can also be Chris Farley dancing with Patrick Swayze on Saturday Night Live as the Chippendales character, which is the best.
Oh yeah, all day.
Oh my gosh, dude, so much fun. We got to find a way to hang out and go mountain biking together. And if anybody watching this is interested in getting in touch with Lane, you want to find out how he's doing, want to follow up, if you want the contact, reach out to me and I'll be happy to put you in touch with him. And so Lane, thanks again, man. Keep rocking, keep pushing the boulder, and we look forward to seeing you on small and big screens for years to come, brother.
All day. I do have Guardians of the Galaxy coming out soon, so I'm in that. So that's my plug, I guess. And that's the new Zoe 101 film that comes out, I'm in that too.
Oh my gosh.
There we go.
Yeah, well, we'll all make sure to go check it out and continue to applaud whenever they see the back of a head without the face falling out of a tree. Everybody,
oh yeah, man,
going nuts, man.
Oh yeah.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate it, and for everybody watching, current students, remember, we do a variety of these every single year. So if you want to look at any of them, make sure you reach out. We'll provide any of the links to all the different interviews we do with former philosophy students doing amazing things in their life. And you too will become one of them. And we're going to talk to you in the very, very near future. So, all right, everybody take care.
Yeah, good luck, guys.